And at the end of the day, the answer is you need to be authentic and you need to be aware of the potential consequences. PS or BS. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, and this is our series helping students understand how we look at personal statements and whether they're a good personal statement or if it's BS. Let's go and jump into our personal statement today. If you would like to apply to be on PS or BS or have your essay reviewed on PS or BS, go to psorbs.com/apply. All right, so we look at this first paragraph, and the student jumps into this anecdote. The anecdote here is the seed. If you don't know what a seed is, in my book, The Pre-Med Playbook Guide to the Medical School Personal Statement, I talk about the seed being the moment you were exposed to healthcare in a way that made you think that you wanted to go into healthcare yourself, or at least explore it. Right? It doesn't have to be this aha moment that I knew that's when I wanted to be a doctor, but it has to logically make sense as to why you wanted to explore healthcare. So when we look at this example, to me, there's no logical connection to why someone who's working at Walmart, which the location really doesn't matter, but working at Walmart says, "Hey, you should go to the emergency room." And then that be a moment where the student's like, "Oh, I think I might want to explore medicine," because the student isn't interacting with healthcare at all. They're not in a position to see healthcare be administered and see the impact of it and understand it. They're just saying, "Hey, go to the emergency room." There is one part on here about being thanked. He thanked me for my help. And I put in here all the time to stay away from being thanked. And at the end of the day, you can see my comment here that I'll put staying away from being thanked. It for me is making sure that you're not giving off a vibe of I'm going into this field so people will put me up on a pedestal. So people will praise me, so they'll thank me, so that I can feel good about myself because of what these other people are saying to me. And don't get me wrong, right? Being a physician is amazing. You get to take care of people, you get to get thanked a lot, you get to save lives. It's not all glory, but you do get to make an impact on people's lives. And if there's a whiff of you're doing that solely for the kudos that are gonna come your way, it may scare off some people. So, I generally have students stay away from all of the being thanked stuff. It doesn't need to be in your personal statement. It's a distraction. You're not saying you want to go into medicine to be thanked. So, we don't need it. It's a distraction. But ultimately, when you look at what this student is saying, they're saying, "Hey, I want to be a doctor because I like the urgency, aka adrenaline rush. Awareness, I'm really not sure what that means, and service." And so we have this I like to help people service, and I like science. It's missing the I like science, right? The two most cliche ones, but the service one is a cliche. And again, I don't know if there's enough here to understand service based on working at Walmart and telling someone to go to the emergency room. So for me right now, there's a lot missing from this story to help me understand how this prompted this trajectory of wanting to explore healthcare. All right, so we get to this next paragraph. Typically, after the seed, and the seed doesn't have to come first, but typically after a seed, then we're going to be met with some watering events. And again, in my book, the Pre-Med Playbook Guide to the Medical School Personal Statement, watering of the seed is typically when you are going and getting clinical experience to help solidify this desire to be a physician. And so, what we see here is not that. We see actually a departure of, hey, I have this diagnosis of ADHD and ASD, and I really struggled in school, but I was faced with this challenge and I can help other people with it. I'm not sure what the goal of this is here in this personal statement. It's very common for students to come ask us, should I put learning disabilities? Should I put mental health stuff? Should I put physical stuff, physical disabilities in my personal statement, or will there be a concern? And at the end of the day, the answer is you need to be authentic and you need to be aware of the potential consequences. And consequences meaning someone reading this might go, I just don't know if we have the support here at our school to support someone like you." Or I have seen students with similar diagnoses come through and struggle and drop out and not pass or whatever. And so they may be holding some biases against what you're writing about based on past performance from other students who are not you. We can't control that. And so for students, you need to be aware that what you put in your personal statement can potentially hurt you. Now, when I say be authentic, it isn't to a fault. You have to be aware that what you put in here, again, can be held against you. And also, my default is if what you want to write about is a strong reason why you want to be a physician, then it probably should go in your personal statement. How do we write about it to potentially minimize the risk of someone reading it going, "Oh, I don't think you're going to do well in medical school." So when we look at this, I don't see much of a reason why this is here other than potentially the student struggled in undergrad and they just want to put it here in the personal statement that, hey, you're going to see some bad grades. Here's why. And ultimately, for me, that doesn't need to be in the personal statement because your grades should prove that you have overcome anything, whether it's because you have ADHD, whether it's because you broke up with your first love, whether it's because you had a death in the family, whatever your academic struggles were, your transcript will show recovery. And if your transcript doesn't show recovery, putting this in the personal statement isn't going to help ease any sort of concerns that they may have that you might be an academic risk. All right, so we move on to the next paragraph here. And again, ultimately, with watering events, again, in this fake made up world that I created for the book, watering events are interactions with patients. And that's what we have here. We have an interaction with a patient. The goal of the watering event is to show who you are through this interaction with the patient. So let's go ahead and look at this and see if I can see who this person is through the interaction, who the student is that's writing this through the interaction. So we start off with going into volunteering at this first location, obviously left out to make it anonymous. It's telling you what that clinic does. So again, not really helping me understand who the student is. I felt connected with the students who had similar struggles, always considered to be my weaknesses were symptoms of ASD and ADHD. So again, continuing to piggyback off of these things that were brought up in the previous paragraph, which again aren't helping me understand who this student is yet, could be managed with proper treatment. Of course, right? That's just, yeah, they can be. I spoke with teenagers with similar obstacles, explained my journey, giving them hope for a bright future. Let me see what that looks like. Show me that through the anecdote, through your writing. Help me understand what it is that interaction looks like. That will help me see who you are. It'll help me see your compassion. It'll help me see your empathy. It'll help me see your kindness, etc. But we don't really see that. It's just saying, "Hey, I spoke with teenagers." And so when we look at telling versus showing, this is telling. I spoke, I spent, etc., right? I felt. And so when we look at this telling statement, it's really not helping me understand who you are in this interaction. It's just saying, "Hey, this is what I did." And we were playing chess and he mumbled that I had saved his life. So again, we're coming back to that thanking sentiment. It's a little hyperbolic. That could be what he said. But again, when you focus on writing this in your personal statement, when you have lots of drafts to go through, and the reflection, the takeaways are, I was thanked, I saved a life, it focuses a lot on just what it means to you to be held up to this higher level, put up on a pedestal, etc. Now, I don't think that's what you're trying to do, but that's potentially how it can be viewed. And so again, I just would stay away from, "Hey, I saved his life," which again to me is just a different way of saying I don't see you. I don't see the interaction, which is what I want to see. He said before we met, he thought no one would ever understand him. He shared he looks up to me. So again, pedestal, et cetera, et cetera. I like what you're trying to do and using an interaction here, but it's not helping me understand why. And it's not helping me understand who you are through this process. So we have the reflection. Typically, the reflections come at the end. Working with Daniel firmly cemented my desire to become a physician. Okay, great. Why is my next question. In no other profession, and that's always a red flag when students are trying to compare other professions to medicine, you should just be able to say, this is why I want to be a physician, without saying, this is why nothing else compares to being a physician. Because to me, that means you probably are missing some points on what it is to be a physician. In no other profession will I gain the extensive knowledge and skills to heal others and help identify undiagnosed disabilities. Well, I don't know if that's true, right? You can be a PA and have skills to heal and to diagnose, right? Obviously, there is a knowledge difference between 4 years of medical school and residency and all of that. But I don't think this is a true statement because there are lots of things in healthcare. You could be a psychologist potentially to help people. You could, again, be a PA or other healthcare practitioner who is out there working and helping people through their struggles. I don't understand this help identify undiagnosed disabilities. I'm not sure where that's coming from. My guess is that you're tying it back together with your undiagnosed ADHD and ASD here. And so I don't think you need to tie it back together with your own journey. How did this interaction with Daniel strengthen your desire to be a physician? Not just, hey, being a physician is going to give me skills. Of course it will. Of course it will. But what impact did this conversation, did this interaction, did this relationship have on your desire to be a physician? What impact do you want to make on other people in the future? All right, so we have this next paragraph here, which to me is just a bunch of information that just doesn't belong in the personal statement. It's a lot of I did this, which did that, and connected. It's a lot of connect the dots here, which when you look at how long it is 498 characters, rounded up to 500. It's just not necessary to help move the story along about why you want to be a physician. This is just transition stuff that's just not needed. All right, so we have this next paragraph, and again, I'll say I don't think this belongs in the personal statement. This is a lot about research and research kind of structure and development, and probably would make for a great, potentially most meaningful activity in the activity section. But this doesn't help me understand why medicine. Why do you want to be a physician? This just tells me that you're really interested in healthcare disparities with developing these programs to potentially improve healthcare outcomes. Now, I often will say being a physician is obviously fantastic, but you often don't have the ability to impact the community at large as a physician. A lot of that happens through healthcare policy, through politics. And yeah, there are physicians who are great change makers and linchpins in this world driving a lot of this, but it's not the common route to become the physician and then change the community and change how healthcare is delivered and change healthcare outcomes. And so someone reading this might go, hey, maybe you're more interested in the MPH route going into public health because that's a lot of what they're focused on is this bigger community health, bigger world of impacting patients on a bigger level. So just be careful with the discussion about healthcare outcomes. I think just potentially is a distraction from wanting to be a physician and taking care of patients to wanting to solve bigger problems, which is a fantastic idea. But for your personal statement, I think it's a distraction for why you want to be a physician. In general, also, I don't recommend research in a personal statement because I don't think research equals being a physician. Yes, obviously, research is important to medicine, research is important to patient care, research is important to pharmaceutical development and the device industry with creating new devices for healthcare. But the day to day world of a physician, it's not research unless you're going down the MD PhD route, in which case a large part of your job will probably be research. And yes, you can be quote unquote just an MD or a DO and do a lot of research as well. But the goal for us, for the personal statement, why do you want to be a physician? And if you focus on research, then the question will come back, why don't you just go into research? Because that's just different. Again, personal point of view, none of what I say is the right answer or the wrong answer. Just it's the personal point of view. All right. So we have the conclusion. I generally like to see a lot of aspirations. I don't like to see a lot of recaps because I just read what you wrote. I don't need you to recap everything for me. This isn't a traditional English paper where you have the intro, the three uh, paragraphs for the body, and then a conclusion that ties it all together. In the military, we called the agenda for every death pipe by PowerPoint. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you, here's what I told you as the general flow. We don't need the here's what I told you part. And so we come into here and there are some recalls back to earlier things. So there is a little bit of recap, right? When we talk about patients like Daniel advocating for populations with higher rates of undiagnosed disabilities. And that's where the previous paragraph and doing some of this research, not having access to physicians to potentially diagnose this stuff early on, that's where that undiagnosed stuff came from, where I was like, I don't know really what this is talking about. But when we look here, the big statement, I've been drawn to medicine for its interactions of humanism. Not really sure where that kind of buzzword is coming from. It's just thrown in there. Knowledge and discovery. And so this person is saying, "Hey, I want to be a physician because I want to learn." And yes, you can learn as a physician, but you can also learn in a lot of other ways. And so I get to the bottom and I ask myself, have you proven to me that you have explored medicine, you have explored healthcare, and you have reflected on this journey and what it is that's drawing you to it? And when we throw in a buzzword like humanism, knowledge, and discovery, it just feels cliche. And so I want the student to go back to the drawing board and really focus in on what I think the students should focus in on, which is patient care, right? We're going into medicine for patient care. We're not going into medicine so I can learn more. Stay at home and read Wikipedia. You can do that. Go download Netters and download all of these medical textbooks and go read. You can have that knowledge. It's what are you doing with that knowledge that makes the impact, and for me solidifies the journey of wanting to be a physician, which is the patient care side of things. And so I would refocus the efforts here on the patient care, not just, oh, I want knowledge. And then again, throw out kind of these buzzwords of humanism that's in here. I admired the doctors who helped me manage my own disabilities. You didn't really talk about that much, so I'm not really sure what they did to do that. Again, if you want to talk about it, if you think that's a big part of why you want to be a physician, then maybe you should talk more about that journey. And maybe that is more your seed than the Walmart experience, which didn't really help me understand how it was that you wanted to explore healthcare from there. So again, a lot of science nerdy, like I want to figure this stuff out. Disability is biologically, socially constructed, discover treatments, be a beacon of hope, which is great. Want to be a beacon of hope. I like that. Furthermore, being an advocate for populations with high rates of undiagnosed disabilities. So again, we have this undiagnosed disabilities tie in again here. It's getting a little bit overused about what you mean by undiagnosed disabilities. I'm not really sure. Is it just that these people didn't have access to newborn visits or something like that as to why they're undiagnosed? Or are you saying there's a big issue with healthcare that so many people are going undiagnosed and you're calling out a problem with that? So potential questions of why you keep bringing up undiagnosed disabilities here. Other children of immigrant and minority ethnic groups. Again, you bring that up a lot. That's obviously a part of your story. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just make sure it makes sense and it's not just thrown in there as, again, just like on top of everything else. Oh, and also I want to take care of minority and ethnic groups. Pinnacle of what I hope to accomplish as a physician is advocating for them. Among other things, I wish to help them navigate the intricacies of the healthcare system and give them the best possible quality of life. So navigating the intricacies of the healthcare system, we have healthcare navigators. We have they're typically nurses who help patients with navigating the intricacies of the healthcare system. Unfortunately, the kind of nuances of healthcare right now, physicians don't have a lot of time to help patients navigate, unfortunately. And so there's a little bit of naivete here with this statement, which isn't a bad thing, but just be careful because a physician might read this and go, "Ha, yeah, yeah, kid, good luck with that." You never know who's reading these personal statements. It could be a physician who is on the not on the actual admissions committee, or not always on the admissions committee, but is just a reviewer and they're reading. And try to potentially stay away from, again, this big systemic improve healthcare outcomes, navigate the intricacies of healthcare. Focus on that individual patient because I think that is where you can make a much more impactful statement when it comes to why you want to be a physician. All right, so we get to the end here, and I say, is this a good personal statement or is this BS? I think this has the bones of a good personal statement. I think the focus is a little bit tangential to what I would prefer to see focused on. Narrow it down into patient care instead of high level stuff. I'm still not really sure about the seed, about that event at Walmart. There's the discussion about personal doctors helping with their own ADHD and ASD. Maybe that belongs, some of that interaction, that impact belongs in the personal statement so that myself as the reader can go, okay, I see the impact that these physicians had on you and your care. So now I can understand why it is you want to help other people in similar situations. Try to stay away from the buzzwordy type stuff like humanism, knowledge discovery. And then when we scroll back up to the top of this takeaway, urgency, awareness, service. There's this like triplet, like buzzwords that you keep throwing in different spots. So just be careful with that. And I think with some small tweaks, with some different focus on the activities, I think you have the bones of a good personal statement here to continue to move forward. Again, if you want to apply for PS or BS, go to psorbs.com/apply. You'll pick a date that the advisors have available, submit your essay. We'll read it, we'll get it back to you, we'll record it, and we'll put it out. And then our advisors are available for one-on-one essay help if that's something you're interested in. If you just go to medicalschoolhq.net.